So we're good, Julianne, to go? Yep. So good morning, all Territorian Indigenous businesses, communities, brothers and sisters that are on the call today, and wherever you are within our global village. Welcome to another awesome installment of the In the Black Northern Territory Indigenous Business Resilience Program, Yarning Circle. Today, I'm joined by the fantastic and awesome Sister Hannah Rowe, who is the manager of the Office of the Register of Indigenous Corporations. As always, before we commence our Yarning Circle discussion today, I'd like to pay humble and deep respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander ancestors, elders, communities, families, brothers and sisters out there, and most importantly, our young brothers and sisters creating their own footprints within the sand for our future generations. Today, as I shared, we're joined by Sister Hannah, we're just going to have a bit of a discussion, sis, in regards to around ORIC's role, COVID-19, Indigenous business, the Indigenous business sector, and obviously the corporations during our discussion today. But how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm really good, Murray. Thanks for the invitation to come and speak to everyone today.
Thanks, my sister. Look, I'll get right into it. In regards to the role of ORIC, as everyone knows, ORIC's got a really, really important role within our communities, as part of the CATSI Act. And a number of corporations are registered and obviously operate under that piece of legislation. Firstly, Sister Hannah, could you just share a little bit of an overview on the function of ORIC and what is the role, what is your role in regards to the organisation?
Yeah, morning everyone. So I just wanted to start by acknowledging the traditional owners on the land we meet today. So I'm based in Darwin, so that's the Larrakia people, but just wanted to acknowledge any First Nations people that are on the line as well. So I'm based in Darwin. We have a team of about 8 staff here in the Darwin office, and we also have the Deputy Registrar, which is Gerrit Wanganeen, who's also based here in Darwin. In my current role, I currently manage ORIC's staff and offices across the north of Australia. So in the Northern Territory, we have offices based in Darwin and Alice Springs, but we also have an office based in Cairns and in the Kimberley region. So across that's a large footprint of area. But there's a lot of corporations, small, large, medium, all different sizes, doing different types of business. The role of ORIC, we're an independent statutory office holder, is the registrar. The current registrar is Mr. Selwyn Button, who is an Indigenous man, and he's based in Brisbane, and he was appointed towards the end of 2018. The roles and functions of our office are all set out in the legislation, which is called the Corporations Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Act. It's about 600 pages, so here's a copy of it here, and we can only do what's set out in that legislation. But I guess the sole role of ORIC, there's about over 3,000 corporations registered nationally, with about 200 of those which are registered native title bodies that have to be registered under the CATSI Act. In the Northern Territory, we've got about 700 corporations across the NT, and they range in all sizes and all different industries. So we have some really small corporations that have just incorporated to either just hold land, they're not doing any business activity, ranging to really large corporations. Our largest corporation had an income of over 100 million last financial year. So, and that's in a variety of different industries and regions. So I guess the main area of my job is making sure that we've got support mechanisms for corporations in those regions, and making sure that those directors are understanding their roles and responsibilities as directors. So we have a range of information that's available on our website. We've got fact sheets. We also usually do training workshops as well to make sure that directors have access to training around what their roles and responsibilities of directors are, and understanding their rule book or their constitution. And we also have a whole lot of support mechanisms that are on our website. So anyone at any time can have a look at what's on the public register, which we're mandated to have under the legislation. But if you're a member of a corporation, you can go on at any time and see the information of who the current directors and members and financial information for your corporation free of charge.
Thanks, sis. I really appreciate that. And I think one of the key takeaways there is that the public listed information. I know a lot of, we've done a bit of work with obviously with the ORIC family over the years, but the big piece is that the public information is for any brothers and sisters who are members or in the public eye in regards to what's happened within their corporation, which is really deadly, and hats off to the corporation around that. Family, in regards to that are on the call, this discussion in regards to what Sister Hannah in regards to her role and what ORIC are doing is focused on our business sector within the territory. And around that, Hannah, I'm just wondering, you shared about, we've got a plethora, a number of corporations, a number of entities that are registered under the legislation. What are some of the key business categories that you see and identify in regards to some of the key business sectors that a lot of our corporations have entered into, if you don't mind sharing that?
Yeah, oh look, there's a range of them. We've got some mining, entities that are registered for mining purposes. They might be doing some mining business. We've got health services. We've got some really large health service corporations across the NT. We've got corporations, the majority I'd say are not-for-profit organisations, but we do have some large-scale corporations that are running, tourism businesses, or they might be running community activities in their community. So, I've got some large corporations that do, they run their CDP programs, or they run their health clinic, or they might run their small community store in their community. So some of these corporations, are really vital to their communities, and without them, there wouldn't be much activity happening in the community. They're the main employer, they're the main trainer of community members, and they quite often have large incomes, so bringing a lot of income into the community.
Yeah, and I think what the important distinction for a lot of the listeners and brothers and sisters that are in southern parts or other parts of the state, Indigenous and non-Indigenous, is to realise that a lot of our corporations that are operating as not-for-profits. I mean, I think it's a really important distinction. And then the other piece is how integral in regards to the supply chain that they create and the impact and how essential they are to a community's continuing existence, but also the role within their community. Is that a fair comment?
Yes. Yeah. So that's a really important point. So some of these corporations are just really vital to the fabric of those communities, and over time have grown to be the central point in the community to run most of the services. I should also point out, Murray, we do have a lot of corporations that are just, small family groups that have decided to, start a corporation or a business, or husband and wife teams, or even sole trader corporations. So, those sort of areas are growing in numbers as well.
And why do individual families decide to undertake the registration when, as a small operation? What are some of the leverage points for that? What are some of the reasons?
Yeah, I think the main thing is because most Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here in the NT, they sort of understand the CATSI Act. They've dealt with, or they've been with, dealt with organisations under the CATSI Act, so they kind of understand the governance framework that's in the CATSI Act. But also, it's just the assistance that they can get from ORIC, whether it's the assistance pre-incorporation. So prior to registering, we help corporations to do their rule book or their constitutions. They can access training through ORIC, and if there's any issues that come up along the way, they can always give ORIC a call on our 1-800 number, or email us at info@oric to get some advice at any time. So I think it's just mainly around the supports that are in place.
And thanks, Sis. I think it's a nice segue into the next part of our yarning circle around COVID-19. Obviously, has had a dramatic impact on a lot of our territory communities. Obviously, with the lockdown and obviously trying to come out of recovery and still trying to operate within the corporations in regards to the services and or goods that they provide. In regards to ORIC's response to it, what are some of the mechanisms that the ORIC family have actually done in regards to the COVID-19 situation for the organisations that you support?
Yeah, look, it's been a difficult time for everybody. I think we've even had to adjust the way that we work. So usually we're out and about meeting with corporations face to face and doing a lot of training activities by this time of year. So we've sort of had to put a hold on that. But the main thing the message to give to corporations is to have a look at the information on ORIC's website. So we have put some things in place to make it easier for corporations during this time, particularly around reporting obligations and extensions of time for holding their AGMs. So we had a whole lot of corporations that are on calendar year reporting who were due to have their AGMs and provide their reporting to ORIC by May this year. So we gave them some automatic exemptions and extensions of time to do that. And so the main thing I'd say to corporations is just to make sure if you're going to have issues to hold your AGM or to provide your financial reporting to ORIC, get in contact with us earlier. The earlier the better. The other thing that we did was we, on our website, we put some special rules in place where if a corporation's rule book didn't allow for them to have meetings by technology, then we would do a registrar-initiated change to their rule book and to make it a bit easier.
Yeah.
Are you there, Murray?
Hey, sorry?
Sorry, the screen just went black for a minute. I thought I'd lost you.
Blacker than usual.
So, yeah.
Good way. So around the pieces of in regards to corporations, you've shared a couple of really wonderful gems there in regards to that corporations need to be mindful of, and some of the mechanisms that the ORIC family have actually put in place to pivot to assist with this process during this pandemic time. If you had any advice from a business perspective for our corporations, 3 key points that you would go, look, this is what makes and breaks you within this environment that, within the CATSI Act, and you'd be trying to operate and generate revenue and as a business, what would be those 3 key tips that you would like, that you could share some of your wisdom with our corporate and also the audience today?
Yeah, so the main things I would say is I would be reviewing your governance structures at the moment. So looking at your rule book, how can we do business during this time? What changes do we need to make? Again, regular meetings. If you're a director on a board, you should probably be meeting more than ever to make sure that you're on top of what's actually happening in the corporation. I was talking to a corporation that's got quite a diverse board that's based in homelands and different locations, and they told me that they had met 12 times for directors meetings by phone and Zoom since March this year, because the directors, even though that they're living in small homelands, they wanted to be kept up to date with what was happening with the business of the corporation during this vital time. So I think that's probably a key thing. As a director, don't make sure you're taking the time to understand what's actually happening in the business of the corporation and getting the right advice. So making sure you're asking questions of your accountant. How are we travelling financially? Getting a copy of the financial reports on a month-by-month basis if the finances are pretty tight. And making sure that you're doing some forecasting, and getting some information of, how long can we do this program for? Are we going to be struggling? If you are struggling, making sure that you're talking to your funding bodies or whoever you report to, or whether it's the regulator or whoever. There's currently some provisions in place that ASIC have provided under the CATSI Act, the Corporations Act, which also apply to CATSI Act corporations around insolvency. So those provisions come to an end at the end of September. So we'll have to see what happens there, but there has been some leeway around trading insolvent and creditors' statutory demands. So there's some information on our website about that as well. But the main thing also is planning. So you've still got obligations for reporting back to your regulator, or whether it's ASIC or ORIC. But also in your rule book requires you to have an AGM every year to provide a report back to your members. And it's really important that you do that because your members are the shareholders and the owners of the corporation. So if you can't physically have a meeting in person, how are you going to keep your members up to date during this time? What are you doing as a board to combat getting through this tough period?
Yeah, and I think the 4 key takeaways there: communication, remaining connected, seeking advice and assistance, and the one piece is in regards to it that business does not stop, that you still have the reporting obligations, but business does not stop. Regardless if there's a pandemic, we still have to exist and continue to operate as businesses and organizations, because we, in a lot of instances like you've shared today, Hannah, the role of a lot of our corporations that ORIC supports are the lifeblood of a lot of our communities, which is really amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in regards to it, I just wanted to just open up as a general conversation around, is there anything that you'd like to share from your perspective? You know, you've been leading, you know, you lead quite a diverse team across quite a large region. Is there anything in regards that you feel that our audience or the corporations and brothers and sisters that are listening today, that you'd like to share just in general in regards to what's happening in the territory?
Yeah, look, I think, you know, it's a large area. There's a lot going on. With COVID-19, there's a lot of changes, and I guess there's a lot of uncertainty as well. So I think, you know, as directors, and I've been a director on boards outside of the CATSI Act myself, it's a big duty to be a director of a corporation. And, you know, you've still got those 5 legal duties that apply to you as a director. So just making sure that you're really doing your due diligence and, you know, making sure that you know what's going on in the corporation. And if you need any assistance or if you have any questions, please just give us a call. We may not be able to get out there face to face at this point in time, but we are just a phone call away or an email away if you're having any issues or you have any questions. And the main thing is we're here to support. We want corporations, you know, we want strong corporations in the Northern Territory, and we want corporations to succeed and to be sustainable. So what we can do, yeah, we do whatever we can to help.
Deadly. My sister, in regards to, I really do appreciate your time today and the wisdom that you have shared. And I'll say it's wisdom because sometimes a lot of our brothers and sisters, and you know this yourself, the opportunity to be able to share in a frank discussion and just an open discussion that's not tied to the usual nuances and challenges that normally exist is really quite rare. And you know, on behalf of the team, just thank you very much for your time today. I just wanted to open it up to if there's any questions from anyone that was listening today. If there's any questions there, but I do have a question, if I can sort of start it off just to get things sort of rolling. Hannah, in regards to, and I'm not trying to be facetious and stuff, but as an Indigenous female, you know, who's from Broome, family, in regards to Hannah's got a very diverse background, a lawyer by trade, but incredibly connected traditionally in regards to the Broome area and obviously up into the Torres Strait as well, with extensive experience. The one thing I want to share in regards to it, when I ask is, you as an Indigenous female professional, how have you found yourself in such a important role, and what are some of the challenges and some of the things that you strive to do as a leader?
Oh, good question, Murray. Yeah, look, I think it's I guess where I've sort of fallen into things. I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I finished school, but went on to do a law degree at university, and was really lucky at that point in time that there was a cohort of other Indigenous lawyers that were studying at the same time, and we all got through and we all graduated. So, you know, that was a really good support mechanism for me. So, and then I went on to work for Legal Aid and did my articles, and I worked for a judge for a bit in the Supreme Court in the Northern Territory. But I've sort of just fallen into opportunities. An opportunity came to work for ASIC, the Australian Securities and Investments Commission, which is a mainstream regulator. And those positions don't often come up in Darwin. So I sort of jumped to go and do that. And then I stayed with ASIC for about 7 years, working mainly around consumer issues. And one of the big issues that we worked on at that point in time was around remote lending practices in communities across the NT, and went across the border into North Queensland, where some of the banks had gone really relaxed in their lending practices and had given out loans to people who were just on Centrelink payments and couldn't afford, for example, a $30,000 loan for a vehicle that and the vehicle wasn't worth $30,000. So we actually reached a settlement with the Commonwealth Bank of Australia for $5.4 million, where they actually said, yeah, we shouldn't have given out those loans, and they repaid the money. So yeah, that was really interesting work. I really enjoyed it, and there was a lot of issues around book up and other sort of lending practices that were happening and really common across the north of Australia as well. And then an opportunity came up to work for ORIC in the Darwin office, which there hadn't been a position in Darwin before. Traditionally, ORIC had been Canberra based. So I sort of needed a new challenge, so I've come across to ORIC. Look, I really enjoy working for ORIC, and the office here in Darwin has grown. We sort of now operate as a hub, sort of servicing the north of Australia with staff based in Cairns and Broome and Alice Springs as well. So, look, love working for ORIC. It's really good to be able to work with people in your own communities and to help them to, particularly for a corporation that's really struggling or might be having some issues financially, it does make a big difference to be able to step in and use some of the registrar's special powers to get that corporation back on track and back into the hands of the community. Whereas if they were registered with ASIC or another regulator, that corporation would be wound up and that it wouldn't exist in that community in that form anymore. So, that's really rewarding. I find the training really rewarding. It's always good to work with countrymen across the north of Australia and in a positive way, so not in a negative, so you're not dealing with complaints, but you're actually saying, this is the tools that you need to be a good director on your board. So I find that really rewarding as well. But like any work, it's really difficult being a local Indigenous person and working, and you're dealing with, a lot of complaints and a lot of politics and communities as well. So, it's always a bit of a balance.
I know how tough the role is sometimes, and our interactions, either as working for a client or working, been supporting the ORIC effort, which has been deadly. I'm just wondering, in regards to what can a director do in relation to if one of the directors has actually been found positive in regards to a trace finding around if they got COVID-19? I mean, what are some of the things that they could be doing to pivot in regards to continuing the operation of the board? If something like if COVID hit the board, what are some of the things that can be done?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I guess from the outset, all boards should be aware of COVID, what restrictions are in place, and be putting some restrictions now in place with their planning. So if you're having a directors meeting, spacing your chairs out, a bit wider, making sure that, you've got hand sanitizer in the room. They are recommending in some locations that you hold particularly if you've got a large board, holding the meetings outside, if the weather allows for it. But yeah, it's a difficult one, and I think as a board you probably need to do a bit of risk analysis and contingency planning around it. It's very hard.
Is that something that, for example, a board, I think this is really great about business continuity planning, right? In regards to their corporations. If they have queries in regards to what we've just discussed, can they call, obviously, the team on the public listed number to get seek advice around the business continuity planning? Is that okay?
Yeah, they could. They're going to be constrained as well just by their rule book. So it's not like they could they wouldn't be able to step down as a director during that time unless their rule book allows for them. So it may be that they have to work out a way whether they're doing decision making through like on the paperwork. So they, I can't think of the word for it at the moment. But, instead of having a face-to-face meeting during that time that they're doing decision-making, they're still making decisions or being involved in decisions if there's urgent things that come up.
Yeah, I think it goes back to the special rules and those considerations around that we shared earlier in our yarn in regards to some of the provisions that have been allowed by ORIC around if a rule doesn't capture the idea of virtual interaction and communication is also very crucial. But I think it's also important to share with brothers and sisters that are on the call at the moment is that when we talk about virtual communication, it's also about the phone. So picking up the phone and having a yarn, it's not about the face-to-face discussion. It's about the continual communication, regardless of the avenue that you communicate through that is outside of the face-to-face discussion. Is that a fair comment, sis?
Yes, that's really important and there's some tips on our website around holding meetings virtually as well, by whether it's over the phone or by video conference. So, some corporations just won't be used to doing business that way, but, there's still business to be done. So we kind of got to think outside the box and try some different things.
100%. Look, my sister, thank you very much for your time to take time out of your day today. Extremely blessed and humbled for your time today. Brothers and sisters who are on the call today, just want to say thank you very much for attending our latest installment of the Yarning Circle. We've had the pleasure of talking to and sharing our Yarning Circle with the manager of ORIC's Northern Region Office, Hannah Rowe, today. Want to say big SO for you, my sister. Thank you very much. As always, we finish as we start. I want to pay deep and humble respects to all our Territorian Aboriginal ancestors, their families, their elders, those communities and our children that are out there, but also more importantly to the Territory in general. Tough times are now, but in regards to the Territory has the strength to economically recover, but also the role of Indigenous business is also crucial in that recovery. Once again, Hannah, thank you very much, my sister, for your time. And if you're watching this and you want to join the program and you're in the Territory, if you're a Territory established Indigenous business, make sure to comment where you're watching this with the comment deadly down below. The team will get in contact with you. As long as you're a Territory established business, you can be part of the group. But make sure, in general, keep an eye out for some of the live events. On Friday, we've got a Northern Territory Indigenous Business Spotlight, where we're going to share and celebrate one of our other Territory Indigenous businesses and the deadliness that they are in regards to the services and goods they provide. But if you've seen some other, if you'd like to see a replay of this particular yarning circle, make sure to go into our YouTubers page as well under Tagai Management Consultants, and it's all repeated on there as well. Finally, Hannah, thank you very much, my sister. Respects to you and the family. Big SO for you in regards to it. Hope you have an awesome day. And to everyone else, remember, maximize opportunities to make a difference, because only us in regards to what we can do. Together we can be very, very powerful. So thank you very much for your time, everyone, and God bless. Thank you. Bye.